Hey friends, and welcome to the show. I'm your host Raven, and I'm here with my friend Savannah, and we're gonna read you a couple of bedtime stories so that you don't have to. We hope you're having a wonderful and amazing day, and an awesome night. Welcome to everyone, and thanks for coming to join the story. So, we're just here right now, hanging out with Calselmo. And there's also a mud crab here, ready to hear some of the stories too. So, I guess we'll check out what today's books are gonna be. Alright, here's the first one we're gonna check out. It's called The Seed. Let's see what's gonna happen in this story. The hamlet village of Lorik was a quiet, peaceful dwemer community, nestled in the monochrome gray and tan dunes and boulders of the Dejasite. No vegetation of any kind grew in Lorik, though there were blackened vestiges of long-dead trees scattered throughout the town. Camdida, arriving by caravan, looked at her new home with despair. She was used to the forest land of the north, where her father's family had hailed. Here there was no shade, little water, and a great open sky. It looked like a dead land. Her mother's family took Camdida and her younger brother Neviv in, and was very kind to the orphans, but she felt very lonely in the alien village. It was not until she met an old Argonian woman who worked at the water factory that Camdida found a friend. Her name was Sigurtha, and she said that her family had lived in Lorik centuries before the Dwemer arrived, when it was a great and beauteous forest. "Why did the trees die?" asked Camdida. "When there were Argonians only in this land, we never cut trees, for we had no need for fuel, or wooden structures such as you use. When the Dwemer came, we allowed them to use the plants as they needed them, provided they never touched the hist, which are sacred to us and to the land. For many years we lived peaceably. No one wanted for anything. What happened? Some of your scientists discovered that distilling a certain tree sap, molding it and drying it, they could create a resilient kind of armor called resin," said Sigurtha. "Most of the trees that grew here had very thin ichor in their branches, but not the hist. Many of them fairly glistened with sap, which made the Dwemer merchants greedy. They hired a woodsman named Janin to start clearing the sacred arbors for profit." The old Argonian woman looked to the dusty ground and sighed. "Of course, we Argonians cried out against it. It was our home, and the hist, once gone, would never return. The merchants reconsidered, but Janin took it on his own to break our spirit. He proved one terrible bloody day that his prodigious skill with the axe could be used against people as well as trees. Any Argonian who stood in his way was hewn asunder, children as well. The Dwemer people of Lorik closed their doors and their ears to the cries of murder." "Horrible," gasped Candida. "It is difficult to explain," said Sigurtha. "But the deaths of our living ones was not nearly as horrible to us as the death of our trees. You must understand that to my people, the hist are where we come from and where we are going. To destroy our bodies is nothing. To destroy our trees is to annihilate us utterly. When Janin then turned his axe on the hist, he killed the land. The water disappeared, the animals died, and all the other life that the trees nourished crumbled and dried to dust. But you are still here?" asked Camdida. "Why didn't you leave?" "For us, we are trapped. I am one of the last of a dying people. Few of us are strong enough to live away from our ancestral groves, and sometimes even now, there is a perfume in the air of Lorik that gives us life. It will not be long until we are all gone." Camdida felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Then I will be alone in this horrible place with no trees and no friends." "We Argonians have an expression," said Sigurtha with a sad smile, taking Camdida's hand, "that the best soil for a seed is found in your heart." Camdida looked into the palm of her hand and saw that Sigurtha had given her a small black pellet. It was a seed. "It looks dead." "It can only grow in one place in all Lorik," said the old Argonian. "Outside an old college in the hills outside town. I cannot go there, for the owner would kill me on sight. And like all my people, I am too frail to defend myself now. But you can go there and plant the seed." "What will happen?" asked Camdida. "Will the Hiss return?" "No, but some part of their power will." That night, Camdida stole from her house and into the hills. She knew the cottage Sigurtha had spoken of. Her aunt and uncle had told her never to go there. As she approached it, the door opened and an old, powerfully built man appeared, a mighty axe slung over his shoulder. "What are you doing here, child?" he demanded. "In the dark, I almost took you to be a lizard man." "I've lost my way in the dark," she said quickly. "I'm trying to get back to my home in Lorik." "Be on your way, then." "Do you have a candle I might have?" she asked piteously. "I've been walking in circles, and I'm afraid I'll only return back here without any light." The old man grumbled and walked into his house. Quickly, Camdida dug a hole in the dry dirt and buried the seed as deeply as she could. He returned with a lit candle. "See to it you don't come back here," he growled, "or I'll chop you in half." He returned to his house and fire. The next morning, when he awoke and opened the door, he found that his cottage was entirely sealed within an enormous tree. He picked up his axe and delivered blow after blow to the wood, but he could never break through. He tried side chops, but the wood healed itself. He tried an upper chop, followed by an under chop to form a wedge, but the wood sealed. Much time went by before someone discovered old Janen's emaciated body lying in front of his open door, still holding his blunted, broken axe. It was a mystery to all what he had been chopping with it. But the legend began circulating through Lorik that his sap was found on the blade. Shortly thereafter, small desert flowers began pushing through the dry dirt in the town. Trees and plants newly sown began to live tolerably well, if not luxuriantly. The Hiss did not return, but Camdida and the people of Lorik noticed that at a certain time around twilight, long wide shadows of great bygone trees would fill the streets and hills. And then there's the publisher's note at the end. The Seed is one of Marobar Sol's tales, whose origins are well known. This tale originated from the Argonian slaves of southern Morrowind. Marobar Sol merely replaced the dwemer with dwemer and claimed he found it in a dwemer ruin. Furthermore, he later claimed that the Argonian version of the tale was merely a retelling of his original. Lorik, while clearly not a dwemer name, simply does not exist, and in fact Lorik was a name commonly used incorrectly for Dunmer men in Gorfalim's plays. The Argonian versions of the story usually take place on Vardenfell, usually in the Telvanni city of Sadrith Mora. Of course, the so-called scholars of Temple Zero will probably claim this story has something to do with Lorkhan, simply because the town starts with the letter L. That was a pretty good story, guys. She got that guy. The tree totally owned him. Oh my gosh. Alright then. Let's check out our other book that we have to read today. Alright, so this story is called The Importance of Where. Let's see what's gonna happen in this one. The chieftain of Orthobar gathered his wise men together and said, "Every morning a tenfold of my flock are found butchered. What is the cause?" Fangbeth the war leader said, "A monster may be coming down from the mountain and devouring your flock." Gorik the healer said, "A strange new disease perhaps is to blame." Baran the priest said, "We must sacrifice to the goddess for her to save us." The wise men made sacrifices, and while they waited for their answers from the goddess, Fangbeth went to mentor Joltareg and said, "You taught me well how to forge the cudgel of Zolia, and how to wield it in combat, but I must know now when it is wise to use my skill. Do I wait for the goddess to reply, or the medicine to work, or do I hunt the monster which I know is in the mountain?" "When is not important," said Joltareg. "Where is all that is important." So Fangbeth took his Zolik cudgel in hand and walked far through the dark forest, until he came to the base of the great mountain. There he met two monsters, One bloodied with the flesh of the chieftain of Orthobar's flock fought him while its mate fled. Fangbith remembered what his master had taught him, that where was all that was important. He struck the monster on each of its 5 vital points: head, groin, throat, back, and chest. 5 blows to the 5 points, and the monster was slain. It was too heavy to carry with him, but still triumphant, Fangbith returned to Orthobar. "I say I have slain the monster that ate your flock," he cried. "What proof have you that you have slain any monster?" asked the chieftain. "I say I have saved the flock with my medicine," said Gorik the healer. "I say the goddess has saved the flock by my sacrifices," said Baran the priest. 2 mornings went by, and the flocks were safe. But on the morning of the 3rd day, another 10-fold of the chieftain's flock was found butchered. Gorik the healer went to his study to find a new medicine. Baran the priest prepared more sacrifices. Fangbith took his solid cudgel in hand again, and walked far through the dark forest until he came to the base of the great mountain. There he met the other monster, bloodied with the flesh of the chieftain of Orthobar's flock. They did battle, and again Fangbith remembered what his master had taught him. That where was all that was important. He struck the monster 5 times on the head, and it fled. Chasing it along the mountain, he struck it 5 times in the groin, and it fled. Running through the forest, Fangbith overtook the monster and struck it 5 times in the throat, and it fled. Entering into the fields of Orthobar, Fangbith overtook the monster and struck it 5 times in the back, and it fled. At the foot of the stronghold, the chieftain and his wise men emerged to the sound of the monster wailing. There they beheld the monster that had slain the chieftain's flock. Fangbith struck the monster 5 times in the chest, and it was slain. A great feast was held in Fangbith's honor, and the flock of Orthobar was never again slain. Jolterang embraced his student and said, "You have at last learned the importance of where you strike your blows." And then there's the publisher's note. This tale is another which has an obvious origin among the Ashlander tribes of Vardenfell, and is one of their oldest tales. Marbar Soul merely changed the names of the characters to sound more Dwarven, and resold it as part of his collection. The great mountain in the tale is clearly Red Mountain, despite its description of being forested. The starfall and later eruptions destroyed the vegetation on Red Mountain, giving it the wasted appearance it has today. This tale does have some scholarly interest, as it suggests a primitive Ashlander culture, but it talks of living in strongholds, much like the ruined strongholds of Vardenfell today. There are even references to a stronghold of Orthobar somewhere between Vardenfell and Skyrim, but few strongholds outside of sparsely settled Vardenfell have survived to the present. Scholars do not agree on who built these strongholds or when, but I believe it is clear from this story and other evidence that the Ashlander tribes used these strongholds in the ancient past, instead of making camps of wick-wheat huts as they do today. The play on words that forms the lesson of the fable, that it is as important to know where the monster should be slain at the stronghold, as it is to know where the monster must be struck on its body to be slain, is typical of many Ashlander tales. Riddles, even ones as simple as this one, are loved by both the Ashlanders and the vanished dwemer. Although the dwemer are usually portrayed as presenting the riddles, rather than being the ones who solve it, as in Ashlander tales. Wow, very interesting, and lots of information about the dwemer in these books. Alright guys, well, I guess that's it for the bedtime story today. If there's any that you want to hear, go ahead and leave it in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Otherwise, I'll see you guys again next time for a couple more stories. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming to the bedtime story. I'll see you guys again next time. Bye for now.